not only as a police officer formerly, but here as a member of Parliament. We have increased resources, but every time we've done that, the NDP and the Liberals have opposed that, Mr. Speaker. We want a strong and safe Canada, and C-51 will give our police forces and security and CSAs the tools that they need. Thank you so much.
We now will move from this debate to statements by members. Déclaration du député.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The victims of thalidomide are grateful to all members of Parliament for the unanimous motion to provide them with financial compensation for the injustice that they have suffered, their suffering, their difficulties. But the government needs to make arrangements for this compensation that has been promised very quickly because the victims can no longer wait. A lady in my riding of Montcalm called to thank us for this motion in December, but she's wondering if and when these promises will be kept. I urge the government to do everything possible to compensate the victims of thalidomide without further delay. I call on the health minister and say to her that it is her responsibility to move things forward and to not wait any longer. It is high time that we walk the talk.
Statements by members. The Honourable Member for Kitchener-Waterloo.
Mr. Speaker, my riding is well known for its innovative and entrepreneurial culture, and one of the key drivers of our success is the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. And their annual Business Excellence Awards celebrate outstanding companies, individuals, and organizations. And I'm pleased to recognize this year's recipients announced at last week's gala. Maureen Cowan, Community Leader; Al Hayes, Volunteer of the Year; Leslie Warren, Young Entrepreneur; Wilfrid Laurier University, Environment and Sustainability; Economical Insurance, Employee Engagement; Drayton Entertainment, Tourism; St. Mary's Hospital, Innovation; Chicopee Resort Nonprofit; Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro, Workplace Health and Wellness. And in the 3 Business of the Year categories, Zoop, Cottle's Catch Seafood, and Ontario Driving Gear. I congratulate all winners, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Chamber for promoting business excellence in our community.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, while considering the Kinder Morgan proposal that would drastically increase tanker traffic off the coast of my riding of Victoria, Conservatives stood by as the National Energy Board limited public input and cross-examination by interveners, including NDP. They gutted long-standing environmental protections and continue to ignore climate change. Now, they are again standing by as Kinder Morgan is allowed to keep its plans for oil spill recovery secret from the people of Victoria and from all British Columbians. The very kind of plans that are routinely available across the border in Washington state. This deplorable secrecy does no favour to the resource industry, which depends on social license from First Nations and from communities small and large, trampled by a government that allows our resources to be sold at any price. Canadians deserve laws that protect us from toxic spills, make polluters pay, and rise to the challenge of climate change. And they deserve a government with a plan to invest resource revenue in the public interest and to build an advanced, low-carbon economy powered by renewable energy.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, February the 15th was an exciting day in Newmarket, Aurora. Not only was it the 50th birthday of Canada's national flag, it was the Battle of York charity hockey game between the Newmarket Hurricanes and the Aurora Tigers. The annual matchup between Junior A hockey club rivals, hosted by the Newmarket Hurricanes, has raised an impressive $111,000 to date. Dozens of individuals donated their time and resources to make the Battle of York 2015 one of the most successful yet. This year's proceeds will go towards the Cancer Centre at South Lake Regional Health Centre. It was a thrilling game, played during this year of sport in Canada. With hundreds of fans cheering players on both sides, it was more than just a game. It was sport at its finest, bringing hockey lovers and community together for a tremendous cause. Congratulations to all the players involved and from the Newmarket Hurricanes and Aurora Tigers Junior A hockey clubs on a job well done.
The honourable member for Random Burn, St. George's.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize 3 young men from Marystown in my riding of Random Burn, St. George's. The heroic actions of 18-year-old T.J. Fitzpatrick and Justin Saunders and 17-year-old James Stapleton saved the lives of 3 people from almost certain death in a blaze that destroyed a hotel in the early morning of February the 16th. When T.J. noticed smoke coming from the hotel, he alerted the local fire department. While waiting for the fire department to arrive, he and his 2 friends forced their way into the building. Once inside the smoke-filled hotel, the trio made their way into rooms looking for sleeping guests. It was because of their efforts that 2 guests staying at the hotel and the receptionist were safely led from the building. Just 20 minutes after TJ came upon the scene, the hotel was completely engulfed in flames. When asked about their actions, they said they did just what anyone else would do in the same situation. You don't think about yourself, you just think about who might be inside. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members to join me in recognizing the bravery shown by T.J. Fitzpatrick, Justin Saunders, and James Stapleton. Thank you.
The honourable member for Langley.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are shocked to find out that an organization is attempting to deny Canadians, brightest students, the right to work in Canada because of their religious views. The Bank of Montreal has been discriminating against Trinity Western University students. BMO aggressively has opposed the TWU Law School graduates from practicing law in Canada. This is one of Canada's largest banks, and why are they attacking religious freedoms? Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms confirms and protects our religious freedoms. Both the Supreme Court of Canada and the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia have upheld these democratic rights. The Supreme Court said our religious freedoms should be permitted to exist and should be encouraged to thrive. Canadians want their rights and freedoms to be taken seriously. They don't want a big national bank to bully small private university. Canadians want our banks to focus on what they're there for, to focus on the economy and to provide financial assistance to Canadians. We call on the Bank of Montreal to reverse its discriminatory position and respect the religious freedoms of all Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Welland.
Mr. Speaker, the Welland Hospital in my riding is under threat of closure. Last month, about 70 people gathered at the Welland Civic Square for a meeting organized by the Niagara Health Coalition and launched a petition to save the Welland Hospital. I fully support the efforts being made to save the Welland Hospital and the services people rely on. I'd like to thank the many people who have taken the initiative and been involved in the campaign. The Welland Hospital, Mr. Speaker, serves 51,000 city residents as well as the communities of Port Colborne, Fort Erie, Pelham and Wainfleet, meaning almost 100,000 people rely on the Welland Hospital. The Niagara Health System says it's too expensive to maintain the number of existing hospitals in the Niagara region. Having 2 or maybe just 1 hospital will save millions of dollars in operating costs, they say. Well, it might be true, but it shows that we're not giving health care the priority it really deserves. We're beginning to see in Welland and Niagara the impact of the continuing neglect of health care by successive governments, both Liberal and Conservative, here in Ottawa. This government's $36 billion cut to health care transfer payments is affecting real lives in my community. We need better health care. We need to give it the attention it deserves. A healthy, productive community lives in easily.
The honourable member for Oakville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The world is waking up to the potential health risks from electromagnetic radiation from cellular phones, Wi-Fi, baby monitors, iPads, and other tablets. France banned Wi-Fi in daycare centers and elementary schools, and for older children, teachers must turn off Wi-Fi when it's not being used for teaching. The Israel Knesset has ordered radiation testing in all Israeli schools, banned Wi-Fi from preschools and kindergartens, and restricted its use to 1 hour a day for students up to grade 3. Taiwanese lawmakers have banned the use of electronic devices for children under 2 altogether, and parents who allow older children to use iPads and smartphones face fines. Oakville-based Canadians for Safe Technology are on the Hill today with cancer expert Dr. Anthony Miller to address the potential harms from wireless radiation. Manufacturers' safety warnings are hidden in fine print in tiny booklets most users never see. My private member's Bill C-648 will make sure Canadians can see the safety warnings they deserve to see, so they can use wireless devices safely.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville.
Mr. Speaker, in ongoing efforts to attract more boaters to the Rideau Canal, much of which runs through my riding of Leeds-Grenville, Parks Canada is operating a 2-for-1 deal at the beginning of the upcoming season. From May 15th to June 30th this year, boaters who purchase a single lock and return permit or a one-day permit will receive a second one free. Boaters can purchase the permits and receive their second one at any lock station along the canal. And Mr. Speaker, this applies to both motorized and non-motorized boats. This promotion builds upon our government's continuing efforts and commitments to this historic waterway. Last year, we concluded an extensive visitors' experience study, which is leading to further investment in the canal and extended operating hours. Mr. Speaker, I encourage everyone to visit Burt's Rapids, Merrickville, Rideau Ferry, Portland, Westport, Newborough, Chaffee's Lock, Jones Falls, Sealy's Bay, and many other places along the canal, and get to see what the canal has to offer families and visitors alike. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for Hochelaga. The name of a young boy from Hochelaga Maisonneuve will remain engraved in our memory. Sébastien Métivier went missing 30 years ago. He was 8 years old. The body of his friend Wilton Lubin, who was 12, was found, and as was that of Maurice Vian, who was 4, but Sébastien was not found. His mother and sister have never abandoned him. They have not only continued to try to find him, but they have also set up a foundation in his name. Sébastien Métivier is the name of the foundation, and it supports families with children who are missing or murdered. Thanks to the generosity of these two women and of the Repos Saint-François d'Assise, these parents now have a place to go to and even to bury their child if needed. So, bravo and thank you to Christiane Sirois and Mélanie Métivier. You are extraordinary women.
Member for Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commissioner for the RCMP finally released his report into the RCMP's handling of the June 2013 flood in High River, Alberta. You will recall that both the Canadian military and the RCMP were called upon to undertake a search and rescue operation in response to the devastating flood situation there. However, long after the town was secured, those efforts by the RCMP changed into forcibly entering homes and seizing legally owned firearms and ammunition. The report confirms that hundreds of those firearms were taken without the legal authority to do so. Back in June of 2013, our government raised the alarm after hearing reports that firearms were being seized by the RCMP. Law-abiding Canadians should never face unlawful search and seizure of their personal property. The RCMP clearly have a long road ahead of them in restoring their reputation with law-abiding gun owners. Some accountability in light of the report's finding would be a good start. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Saturday, we organized a day of action for affordability in Joliette. It was a great success, and a large number of my constituents agree with me that we expect more from a responsible government. We in the NDP want to limit credit card interest and lower ATM fees. The banking sector is very loosely regulated at a time when we are all being asked to tighten our belts. So this industry should not be allowed to make higher profits on the backs of ordinary customers. Interest rates are currently 19% and transaction fees $3. We want them lowered to prime plus 5% and 50 cents, respectively, at most. These are concrete measures, and they are supported by people in Joliette. People came out in large numbers on Saturday to say so. I'm pleased to see that our community is able to mobilize to change things one step at a time.
Speaker, our government's responsible resource development plan is creating jobs, growth, and long-term prosperity for all Canadians. That is why I am proud to be part of a government that recognizes the importance of creating the best fiscal conditions for energy investment and development. The natural resource sector supports 1.8 million jobs, contributes toward nearly 20% of our economy, and provides government revenue for important programs like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. In contrast with high tax and spend agenda of the Liberals and NDP, who would both implement a carbon tax that will raise the price of everything. Our low tax plan is delivering results for Canadians by creating jobs and economic growth from coast to coast to coast. Residents in my riding expect our government to ensure that our natural resources are developed for the benefit of future generations of Canadians. And, Mr. Speaker, I am proud to say we are doing just that.
Hear, hear. Honourable member for Charlottetown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. About 4 hours ago, the 32nd Premier of Prince Edward Island was sworn in. We now have the distinction of not only having the first ever female Premier in Canada, but the first ever Premier who got his Order of Canada before becoming Premier. Wade McLaughlin transformed the University of Prince Edward Island as the President of UPEI from 1999 to 2011. Prior to that, he was the Dean of the UNB Law School, and prior to that, he taught law at Dal, where one of his more underaccomplished students was yours truly, although that shouldn't be held against him. He grew up in rural Prince Edward Island and began and developed his entrepreneurial spirit selling newspapers. Now he will be selling Canada's smallest and nicest province in his role, his self-described role as Optimist-in-Chief. The theme of his leadership campaign was people, prosperity, and engagement. He urged all to raise the level of debate and to call on people's better nature, which is something that we could certainly learn from here. I invite this House to join me in welcoming the 32nd Premier of the province of Prince Edward Island as he leads Canada's smallest and nicest province. As his dad Harry would say, it's a great day.
The honourable member for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
Mr. Speaker, New Brunswickers are deeply concerned about an apparent new Liberal plan that would allow provincial Liberals to raise taxes and tolls without getting the consent of New Brunswickers with a referendum. Oh, no. This is exactly what Liberals do, Mr. Speaker. They raise taxes and they take money from average Canadians. At the federal level, in addition to the Liberal carbon tax to raise the cost of everything, it has been exposed that the federal Liberal leader will reverse our tax cuts that help Canadians. Perhaps only someone with a trust fund could understand how the middle-class Canadians could afford higher taxes and higher costs on everything.
Good point.
We reject the high-tax, high-debt Liberal plan. Our government stands with hard-working New Brunswickers and Canadians who want to keep taxes low. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work to put the monies back into the pockets of hard-working Canadians and New Brunswickers where it belongs.
Right. The honourable member for Burnaby Douglas.
Mr. Speaker, as the great Bill Blakey once said, quote, "It's not about where you sit, it's about where you stand." And tonight we'll see where MPs stand on this overarching, vague, and dangerous bill, C-51, a bill that is being condemned by experts, editorial boards, and average Canadians. It provides the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service with a sweeping new mandate to disrupt, and that's the key word, Mr. Speaker, to disrupt the action of Canadian citizens. In question period, the minister has refused to explain what kind of actions this new mandate would allow. The Conservatives have also been unable to explain why these and other new measures in the bill are necessary or how they would have prevented past attacks. We cannot save our freedoms by sacrificing them, Mr. Speaker. We cannot do as the Liberals are and pledge a vote for draconian legislation before even reading it. You Democrats have a different vision. We will stick to our principles and oppose this bill. We will not allow anyone to bully us away from standing by our principles and defend the freedoms and liberties that define our Canadian way of life.
The honourable member for Mississauga South.
Mr. Speaker, mothers and fathers should be able to make the important decisions that affect their own children. That's why our new family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will give 100% of families with kids an average of nearly $2,000 per child. That's nearly $12,000 over the child's first 6 years. Our government trusts that parents know best what's best for their kids. But both the Liberals and the NDP are against putting back money into the pockets of hardworking families. In fact, the Liberals will reverse our tax cuts and will impose more taxes on middle-class Canadian families. So, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will not hike taxes like the Liberals and the NDP will. On the contrary, we are proud to ensure that Mom and Dad have the final say where their money is going.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Burnaby.
Serious violations of human rights, it can be committed in the name of national security. So we need a genuine oversight mechanism for our security agencies. This weekend, the Minister of Defense rejected this measure. Worse yet, this same minister falsely claims that C-51 would not give enhanced powers to our security agencies. Why should Canadians trust this government which is trying to shield its bill and security agencies from parliamentary scrutiny. What does this government have to hide? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we saw this again this weekend. The extremist jihad threat is real. They are targeting areas here in this country, and that is why I invite all members to support Bill C-51. And for us, Mr. Speaker, security, safety, and freedom go hand in hand, Mr. Speaker. And yes, we have a bill that is going to ensure there will be even more judicial oversight. The CSIS will need judicial authorization. Let's send this bill to the committee and let's deliver the goods for Canadians.
From the day that the Prime Minister announced C-51 at a campaign-style event, this has been about politics and not about protecting Canadians. Now, Bill C-51 is a 62-page omnibus bill that amends no fewer than 13 acts. And despite ministers not being clear and sometimes even contradicting each other on this bill, the Conservatives still want to force it through after only a few hours of debate. If the government's so confident about this bill, why are they ramming it through to avoid debate? Why are they trying to keep it away from public scrutiny?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we've seen this weekend again how the jihadi extremist threat is real. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we need to move on and put measures in place to keep Canadians safe, Mr. Speaker, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, who in one of the largest community in our country was proud to present a bill that is fixing the issue we face here in this country, Mr. Speaker, when in this very place we were attacked, Mr. Speaker. I invite the member to support the bill, Mr. Speaker, to send it in committee, and I will be more than happy to answer all the questions that he has on this bill so we can keep Canadians safe. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby New Westminster.
Well, we all agree that public safety is important, but it must never be used as an excuse for dividing Canadians, Mr. Speaker. There is growing criticism that C-51 goes too far. Now, First Nations in particular are sounding the alarm about how this bill would impact them. Grand Chief Terrence Nelson has spoken out, saying that, quote, treaty rights, land rights, natural resource development, any protest like that could be considered eco-terrorist. Does this government not understand that this bill is not just about terrorism? Are they really blind to the fact it can also target legitimate dissent and take away fundamental rights of Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the member should spend less time fear-mongering and more time reading the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, isn't the third page of the bill, Mr. Speaker, that protests are not even included in that bill, Mr. Speaker. But what is included, Mr. Speaker, is that tools to make sure that those who are there to protect us will be able to protect us, like sharing information, Mr. Speaker, or preventing high-risk traveler to be in an airplane, Mr. Speaker. When will the member read the bill and have a more balanced question?
Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are considering selling GM shares to balance their next budget, even though Canadians stand to lose $600 million in the transaction. Can the Minister of Finance tell us if he really intends to sell GM shares at a loss to balance his next budget? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
In the height of the recession, our government took decisive action to support the automotive industry, including purchasing shares in General Motors. This decisive action helped to save over 52,000 jobs here in Canada. Our government is committed to selling those shares at a time and place that is in the best interest of all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
So, just to be clear, they won't rule out selling GM shares at a loss of hundreds of millions of dollars, Canadian tax dollars, for their political gain, Mr. Speaker.
Shameful.
But then the Conservatives have never taken the auto sector seriously. Under their watch, we've lost tens of thousands of good-paying auto jobs, and many plants still face uncertainty, including the GM plant in Oshawa. So, Mr. Speaker, why is the government in such a hurry to sell off GM shares at the expense of Canadian workers and Canadian taxpayers?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association says Budget 2014 demonstrates the government's continued recognition of the importance of the auto sector to Canada's economy. Add to that, Mr. Speaker, news just last week that both Ford and GM are going to be building new cars in Canada. Add to that the fact that Chrysler has announced that they're investing $2 billion into their plant. Add to that the fact that Ford is expanding their footprint in Oakville, adding 1,200 new jobs. Add to that the fact that Honda is expanding. Add to that the fact that Toyota is expanding. Shows again and again that our government gets and supports and is building the Canadian auto sector.
The Honourable Member for Beauséjour. Mr. Speaker, since the election of the Conservatives, the job creation rate has fallen to half of what it was before they came to power, and economic growth has flatlined. In response, they are eliminating programs for our veterans and cutting funding for security agencies and the RCMP. Why? To offer a tax cut for which 86% of Canadians will not be eligible. Why are they refusing to put in place a real plan to grow our economy, create jobs, and help all Canadians, not just the richest? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member is wrong, but that's not surprising for a party whose leader thinks that budgets balance themselves. And obviously, we do have a plan to balance our budget, but also to create jobs, of which we have already created 1,200,000 net new jobs because of our tax cuts. But the Liberals want to increase taxes on the middle class. It is clear that that is going to kill jobs and will prevent them from doing that.
Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, greater economic growth is critical to lifting the fortunes of the middle class. Since 2006, this government has the worst growth record of any Canadian government in 80 years, a paltry 1.7%. Since Conservatives came to power, job creation in Canada is less than half of what it was before they came to power. Wage growth is also down by nearly one-third. The middle class is struggling just to get by, let alone get ahead. Why is there no plan for growth, jobs, or fairness?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
There is a plan. It's called the low tax plan for jobs and growth, Mr. Speaker. And it's no surprise that that member would get so many facts wrong in his question, because his leader says that the budget will just balance itself. He probably thinks that household budgets work that way as well. Well, Mr. Speaker, most families can't rely on a multi-million-dollar trust fund to pay the bills. They work hard every day to put food on the table and to put money in their bank accounts. We're lowering their taxes so that they can keep more of the money that they earn. The Liberals would raise taxes on the middle class. We're cutting them, and we're just getting started.
The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, this government's own former employment minister says, quote, wage rates have barely kept pace with inflation. Economic growth is also crucial to balancing the government's books. They fail to generate growth, so they have to concoct a balance. 70% of infrastructure funds get punted into 2019. $1 billion gets clawed back from veterans. $10 billion gone from DND. The Mounties can't keep up with child porn. And why? So those earning $233,000 can get the biggest tax break. How smart is that?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, anyone whose leader thinks that budgets balance themselves could never make sense of the basic numbers that Canadian households calculate every single day. And let's talk about those numbers. We brought forward a family tax cut and an enhanced universal child care benefit that will help 100% of families with kids. On average, those families will have an extra $1,000 in their pockets starting right now. In fact, as we speak, Canadians are getting ready to fill out their tax forms to enjoy the benefits of the family tax cut. That tax cut is in place. The Liberals would raise taxes. We won't let them.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. The number of people who oppose the anti-terrorism bill introduced by the Conservatives is increasing daily. Former prime ministers, former Supreme Court justices, First Nations leaders, and security and privacy protection experts all agree that this bill is extremely flawed. Given its numerous flaws, this evening the NDP will move an amendment seeking to halt the progress of this bill. Will the Conservatives listen to reason and support our amendment? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I find it very irresponsible, now that we are facing extremist jihadi terrorist threats that is targeting Canada, I find it irresponsible that the NDP doesn't want to do anything about it. Today, the members of the House will have the opportunity to rise in this place to support the protection of Canada against terrorism by voting in favour of Bill C-51, a bill that is balanced with 5 measures, Mr. Speaker, that will go forward to committee. We'll be able to debate with experts and representatives. We'll be able to go through it clause by clause. The responsible thing to do today, Mr. Speaker, is to support and to move forward to protect Canadians. The Honourable Member. It would have been nice for him to consult the experts before introducing C-51. Canadians expect the government to defend our freedoms and our values while ensuring our safety. But Bill C-51 completely misses the mark. The Conservatives are asking the RCMP to neglect certain aspects of our safety and do not want to put in place methods that have been proven to work against radicalization. Why do the Conservatives insist on going down the wrong path? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, we have a balanced bill. There are measures to prevent radicalization by allowing RCMP and CSIS officers to reduce and disrupt the threat. They can go and see parents whose children are on the verge of being radicalized, or by shutting down websites that post jihadi propaganda. Those are some measures in Bill C-51, a bill that has been well received and that is necessary for us to bring to committee so we can debate it fulsomely. Bill C-51 needs to be supported to protect all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Gatineau. I'd like to quote a former mayor of Gatineau who said that the Conservatives should walk the talk, and that is certainly not the case with this government, unfortunately. The Conservatives are about to dramatically increase the powers of CSIS and RCMP drastically, but we learned last week that they diverted $1.7 billion from the RCMP, and this money could have been used to fight in terrorism immediately. The government can introduce all the bills it wants, but what good are they if there are no police or inspectors on the ground to enforce them? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, 7 times we have increased the RCMP budget, but unfortunately we're unable to count on the support of the opposition. However, what I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that on this side of the House, we ensure that both our police forces and our intelligence services have the resources they need to do their primary mission, which is to protect the Canadian public. The Honourable Member.
That cuts would impact services, but it turns out that the Conservative so-called deficit reduction plan is having real consequences for critically important areas of law enforcement. The RCMP unit is dedicated to stamping out child pornography, underspent by $10 million over 5 years. Why have the Conservatives allowed this critical investigative team to be underfunded? Does the minister think that's acceptable?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we doubled the human resources dedicated to tackle with child and sexual exploitation, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, it happens that we've increased so much the budget that the RCMP has a difficulty to find the human resources to fill this position, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we are taking action despite the lack of support from the opposition, Mr. Speaker. Canadians can count on their government, on the Conservative, to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker, protect victims, and protect children from sexual exploitation.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
We'll all
know we support legislation that protects children, but police need resources too. The Conservatives don't get it. The Parliamentary Secretary dismissed millions in lapsed funding to stop child sexual exploitation as, quote, accounting issues. Mr. Speaker, it's much more than that. This police unit receives more than 40,000 tips on child pornography every year, and there's already a huge backlog. Doesn't the minister understand that child sexual exploitation is a critical public safety issue, not something on which to balance his books?
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, our government is clearly understanding that we need to do something against sexual exploitation. That's why we can be proud of the agenda of this government over the last 10 years that has targeted these crimes, Mr. Speaker, and we believe in it so much that we have increased. We have doubled our resources, Mr. Speaker, so much so that the RCMP is having a hard time to find the resources to fill this position, Mr. Speaker. But we will continue despite the lack of support from the opposition. Canadians can count on us. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're already having trouble obtaining satisfactory answers from the government concerning its war in Iraq. And now the Minister of Defense is opening the door to military involvement in Syria and even in Libya. The military mission in Iraq, which was supposed to be limited in scope, is taking on a whole new dimension. Now, can the minister tell us clearly whether he is considering sending our troops into Libya? The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, obviously we have the Special Forces who are in Iraq to aid and advise the Peshmerga. We have our Air Forces who are striking Daesh and ISIL targets. And because of our contribution, we have pushed back the growth of ISIL in Iraq. We are going to consider the success and effectiveness of our military mission there before going forward with any decisions. And obviously, we will introduce a motion before this House for consideration if we decide to extend the mission. Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, we're awaiting this motion eagerly because Canadians expect any deployment of our military forces to be debated here in the House and not on a radio station. Mr. Speaker, the consequences are too important to treat this lightly. The minister knows full well that there is no legal case to intervene in Syria unless he wants to ask the permission of Bashar al-Assad. So, can the Minister of Defence clarify his remarks? Does the minister plan military involvement of Canada in Syria? The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, the framework of our military mission in Iraq is clear. It was in the motion that was approved by this House in the fall. We will consider the needs and requirements of our allies. We are in consultation with them, with the United States, and with a coalition of over 20 countries, including Arab nations, to see what capacity Canada can provide to help in the combat against this terrorist genocidal organization. And it is horrific, Mr. Speaker, that there are certain political parties that do not want to engage with such a mission. It is a safe security mission, but it's a humanitarian mission too.
Mr. Speaker, what we're looking for here is a little bit of clarity from this government, not just more and more rhetoric. The Minister of Defence knows he shouldn't be publicly musing about becoming militarily involved in Libya or Syria. He knows full well that Canada has not made a legal case for bombing in Syria, and the Prime Minister has said that it would require the support of the Assad regime to do so. So can the Minister assure the House that there are no plans for military operations in Syria or Libya?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, of course the House knows that the Canadian Armed Forces are engaged in this multi-country international coalition involving Western democracies and Arab countries against this genocidal terrorist organization in Iraq, supporting the Kurds with an advice and assistance mission for the Peshmerga, as well as hitting ISIL targets through tactical strikes by the Royal Canadian Air Force. I would like to inform the House that just last week the RCAF managed to lead the destruction of an ISIL armaments factory, Mr. Speaker. And so that is the mission to which we are committed. The government will consider its options and the needs, where Canada might be able to contribute, and we will, of course, table a motion in the House in due course.
Honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Mohammed Fahmy showed up this morning for the beginning of his retrial, only to find that it was postponed for another 2 weeks. Earlier this month, because of strong and personal advocacy from the Prime Minister of Australia, Australian citizen Peter Grest, who had been convicted with Mr. Fahmy, was released and deported from Egypt. The obvious question, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister personally call President El-Sisi to push for the immediate release of Mr. Fahmy?
Yes. Honourable Minister of State for Consular Affairs.
Canada continues to call for the immediate and full release of Mohammed Fahmy. The prospect of Mr. Fahmy continuing to stand trial is unacceptable. The prospect. Canada advocates for the same treatment of Mr. Fahmy as other foreign nationals have received. The Canadian government continues, as myself, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister, have been raising this case with Egyptian officials at the highest level for some time. We will continue to do so. Our officials are providing consular assistance for Mr. Fahmy to ensure his well-being.
The Honourable Member for Barassa. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have already begun their election campaign at the expense of taxpayers. Yesterday, during the Oscar ceremony, they boasted about their income-splitting scheme that puts money back into the pocket of the richest Canadians. In my riding, social housing is shutting down, infrastructure is crumbling before our eyes, CBC is being cut, and in the meantime, the Conservatives are wasting money on their election advertising. Last year, they budgeted $11 million more. When will the Conservative government give money back to the taxpayers in order to serve Canadians? The Honourable Minister of State.
Canadian families know that they are better off under this Conservative government than they have ever been before. And Mr. Speaker, as Canadian families are filing their income taxes, they are going to be benefiting from our family tax cut, as well as our expanded and increased universal child care benefit. We've done that, Mr. Speaker, at the same time as increasing jobs, cutting taxes, balancing the budget. Mr. Speaker, we've done it with good, sound fiscal management. That's something the opposition don't know about, because guess what? They think the budgets balance themselves.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hands.
Speaker, the same finance minister who has shown no action when it comes to introducing a February budget is now seeking millions of dollars more of tax dollars for new action plan ads. Economic growth has flatlined. Middle-class Canadian families are struggling. Canadians need more action and less action plan ads. So why is the minister spending his time writing ads and not writing a February budget?
The Minister of State.
We know that Canadians have to balance their budget each and every day. So, Mr. Speaker, that's why we are focused on making sure that we have strong jobs, a strong economy, low taxes, and more actual dollars in the pockets of Canadian families. And we want Canadian families to know about that. As they're filing their income taxes this year, they can access our family tax cut retroactive to 2014. They can access, starting January 1st, our expanded universal child care benefit. Mr. Speaker, they're going to increase taxes. They're going to create a bigger burden on Canadian families. We're going to make life easier for Canadian families.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hands.
Speaker, the Conservatives are ignoring the challenges faced by middle-class families. They've cut funding for veterans. They've cut public health funding to educate Canadians about the importance of vaccinations. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are shoveling more ads, or more money rather, into economic action plan ads. When will the Conservatives lay off the action plan ads and start focusing on the things that really matter to Canadians, like supporting veterans or protecting children?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Mr. Speaker, what Canadian families know is that under the Liberals, transfer payments to the provinces went down, deficits went up, taxes went up, services went down. Under this government, we've created more jobs, we've lowered taxes for Canadian families, we've increased benefits to them directly. They know which government they can trust. It's this Conservative government.
Order. The noise level during the last exchange was bordering on unacceptable. So I'll ask members to come to order when ministers are answering the questions.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, Canadian families are already having trouble making ends meet. But more than that, some parents are now having to pay $200 to have their baby vaccinated or $40 to see an ophthalmologist. These fees violate the principle of affordability under the Canada Health Act. Do the Conservatives realize that by drastically cutting transfers to the provinces, they will further hinder the affordability of health care for Canadian families? The Honourable Minister of Health.
The Constitution. The reality is that we are now transferring more money for healthcare to the provinces than ever in the history of Canada, and it is the province's responsibility to decide what vaccinations they cover in their public systems. But basic vaccinations are covered by the provincial system, Mr. Speaker, and we encourage all parents to vaccinate their children.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
The issue is Conservatives act as if they had nothing to do with extra medical fees, when the main reasons why hospitals, clinics and doctors are looking for money is because the provinces don't get enough from the federal government. These kind of practices threaten the universality
Order. The member for Victoria still has the floor and he's not finished putting the question, so members need to listen to the question. If members have a response, they can do so when he's done answering the question, but not before that. The Honourable Member for Victoria.
The kind of practices threaten the universality of health care, which is a fundamental part of the Canada Health Act, and yet the Conservatives are still planning on cutting health transfers to the provinces over the years. What does the minister have to say, Mr. Speaker, to Canadians who now have to pay hundreds of dollars each year in extra medical fees?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what I would say to Canadians is that we value our public health care system. That's why we now have the highest recorded health transfer dollars in history going to the provinces. In fact, we're talking record funding now. It'll reach $40 billion, Mr. Speaker, $40 billion annually by the end of the decade. The only government that has ever cut transfers to the provinces for health care was the previous Liberal government. We are committed to continuing to increase health transfers year after year after year.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Well, now that TELUS has decided to implement usage-based billing, middle-class Canadians who are already paying some of the highest internet rates in the world will now have to pay even more. Now, this was something that Conservatives used to rail against. Now it's common practice across the sector. You know, Mr. Speaker, every month Canadians are getting nickeled and dimed while this government bails on its responsibility to protect consumers. So why have the Conservatives given up the fight against usage-based billing?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, entirely not the case. It was the President of the Treasury Board, his industry minister, who took the fight, went forward and defended consumers on this very file. But more important than that, and more broadly going forward, Mr. Speaker, is that in last year's budget, and we will have announcements coming up very, very soon, on our Connecting Canadian program to ensure that all of Canadians are bound together and have full access to high-speed internet in all parts of this country. This is an aspiration this country has had for a very long time. For 13 years, the Liberals aspired to get it done, never got it done, and through our Connecting Canadian programs and partnership with the private sector, we are going to make sure that all Canadians have access to high-speed, reliable internet access so they can have full participation in the digital economy and all the opportunities of the future.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne-Blainville.
To act and protect consumers, and they have failed.
All of the major internet service providers are now using usage-based pricing. The Conservatives' rhetoric against this kind of billing has remained exactly that, just rhetoric. Canadians who see their internet bills continually climb no longer want to hear speeches, they want to see action. What will the minister do to protect consumers against to make sure that internet services are available at a reasonable price? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Well, Mr. Speaker, as I just said, with our program, we are working with the private sector and the provinces in all regions of the country to ensure that all Canadians have access to internet at good speed and in the future to protect consumers. And for our economy of the future to ensure that everyone in the electronic future has access. That's what we put into our Economic Action Plan 2014. $405 million invested with the private sector that's going to guarantee access in every part of Canada in the future. It's something we're very proud of.
For New Brunswick Southwest.
Millions of families across Canada will benefit from our government's family tax cut and benefits plan. But New Brunswick residents are deeply concerned about a plan by the new provincial government that will allow Liberals to raise highway tolls and taxes without first getting the consent of voters in a referendum. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business is concerned that this is unfair, and the Canadian Taxpayers Federation says the Liberals are clearing the way for future tax increases. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Finance Minister please update this House as to what our government is doing to keep taxes low?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from New Brunswick Southwest for that excellent question. This is what Liberals consistently do, raise taxes and take money from Canadians' pockets. The federal Liberal leader has said he could convince Canadians to accept a tax hike. According to media, he is even looking at reversing the doubling of the Children's Fitness Tax Credit. We reject the Liberal high tax plan. Our government stands with hard-working New Brunswickers and all Canadians who want to keep taxes low. We will continue to put more money back into their pockets where it belongs.
Honourable Member for Welland.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian families expect the government to make sure that the food they're putting on their family table is safe. New reports from CFA inspectors are quite actually distressing. She said she was regularly intimidated by an arbitrary operators just for trying to do her job. When she brought forward her concerns, her supervisors dismissed them. Is the minister aware of this situation? And if indeed the minister is, does she really think this level of oversight will keep Canadians' food safe?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the member knows, in the last budget we invested another $390 million into the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. That's almost $1 billion under our government into food safety. And today, the Conference Board of Canada rates our food safety system #1 against 17 other OECD countries. We're very proud of that. We can always do better, Mr. Speaker, but in terms of this issue, I am aware of it, and I've asked the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to provide a safe and respectful workplace and environment, as we all expect, and I know they will be doing that.
Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, La Presse today revealed that CFIA inspectors are victims of intimidation when their work is done too rigorously. They're even relocated when they speak out or when they're overly insistent. Staff reductions puts even more pressure on inspectors who are still employed. Mr. Speaker, does the minister realize that it's the credibility of the agri-food industry and public safety that is put at risk because of these recent revelations?
Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that I take seriously, and I do expect the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to provide a very safe and healthy work environment. But of course, Mr. Speaker, there are avenues. There is whistleblower protection. There's also the Labour Department, the Labour Code. But again, Mr. Speaker, there are employee assistance programs available for any employees that may need them.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Chambly-Bordua. Mr. Speaker, the closure of the Parmalat plant in Marieville will result in the loss of 92 good jobs. This is a real and sad disaster for all of the families affected, but also for the community. The NDP has plans to stimulate job creation, and the Conservatives are doing nothing to maintain these kinds of jobs in our small community. What does the Minister of Employment have to say to the people in Marieville who are going to lose their jobs, and why is he so unmoved by their plight? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, obviously we are very sad for the people who are going to be losing their jobs in that specific riding, but when we look at our economy in Canada, we have created 1.3 new net jobs since the recession, and we certainly want to ensure that our approaches and policies for the future will not only protect but expand our ability to create jobs in every corner of the country. That's what we're doing in the manufacturing sector, and I hope that the NDP will put their ideas aside to increase taxes for business and protect quality jobs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Target store in my riding is slated to close within weeks. Dozens of part-time employees will be without work. Many won't qualify for EI benefits in a city where only 20% of the unemployed do. The finance minister empathized. That and no benefits buys you what, Mr. Speaker? He also promised every assistance to find new jobs. No sign of that, Mr. Speaker. Where is that help? What happened to the promise of help?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, we obviously sympathize with those families who are suffering through this difficult time, but the member's question contains a clear falsehood. He says there has been no help. In fact, we have already hosted over 1,500 Target employees for information sessions on the benefits that they can receive through our generous employment insurance system, on the training that is available to help them retool for new jobs, and on the jobs that are already available and vacant looking for workers at this very time. Now, the last thing that these families and the businesses that might hire them need is higher taxes and irresponsible government spending, which is all the NDP has to offer.
The Honourable Member for St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that this week's National Roundtable on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls will not replace a national public inquiry. It could, however, be a step in the right direction. There is a cry for federal leadership and genuine collaboration in order to address this national tragedy that is ongoing. Why would the Prime Minister refuse to attend this week's roundtable on what is clearly an urgent national crisis? Is it because it's not very high on his radar?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as you are aware, the Minister for Status of Women and the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs will be attending the roundtable on behalf of the federal government. Since coming to office, we've taken action on this issue, including by passing more than 3 criminal justice and public safety initiatives, including tougher sentences for murder, sexual assault and kidnapping, and mandatory prison sentences for the most serious crimes. The opposition sadly votes against these bills, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, our government has taken strong action to address the broader problems facing Aboriginal women. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Toronto Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Igor Sechin and Vladimir Yakunin are 2 close friends of Russian President Vladimir Putin. While both have been sanctioned by the United States, they are not on Canada's list. The media has described Canada's sanctions against Rosneft, Mr. Sechin's company, as relaxed. This government's hypocritical talking points about the number of people Canada has sanctioned ring hollow with our allies and with Canadians. This is about quality, not just quantity. When will this government match its actions to its rhetoric and sanction Sechin and Yakunin?
Yes. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we have the most strict sanctions in the world, the most severe.
Over 270 individuals and entities, which is more than the United States and the European Union, Mr. Speaker. We need no lessons here from the Liberal Party.
Honourable Member for Burnaby Douglas.
Mr. Speaker, after a recent cyber attack on the National Research Council, Canadians were kept in the dark for 3 weeks. It seems Conservatives were more worried about how they looked in the media than keeping Canadians informed about the latest security breach. Communications security officials say every cyber attack on government networks last year could have been stopped if computers had been properly protected. Why did the government keep this breach under wraps, and what are they doing to better protect against these cyber attacks?
Mr. Speaker, we take cyber attacks very seriously. That's the reason why we put a strategy in place to fight against these kinds of attacks, and we have invested over $200 million in it. So the Canadian government is trying to protect our industries, and we want to warn people about attacks coming, and we'll continue to invest to improve cybersecurity in this country. The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. This summer, hackers infiltrated the NRC network. Highly strategic information belonging to businesses and Canadian scientists was allegedly stolen. And yet, the National Research Council only warned the public 3 weeks later. Does the government realize that its lack of transparency is undermining the trust? It damages the trust that's necessary for collaboration between scientists. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind my colleague that it's our Conservative government who for the first time put in place a strategy against cybercrime. And this is something we are investing $245 million into. It's intended to protect government entities working together with the private sector. And I invite individuals to take steps to protect themselves from cybercrime. We take it seriously and we're acting as a result.
Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian families know that we're the only party that trusts parents to do what is right for their own families. And that's why our government has taken real action to help Canadian families by introducing the family tax cut and the enhanced universal child care benefit. Mr. Speaker, could the Minister of State for Social Development please update this House on our government's initiatives to put more money in the pockets of Canadian families? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I especially want to highlight today the expanded universal child care benefit for parents who have children between the ages of 7 and 17. It's a brand new benefit, $60 a month for every child between those ages. They've never received that benefit before. We would encourage them to talk to their accountant, look at the CRA website, or call another Conservative member of Parliament to find out about those benefits. But don't talk to the opposition members. They'll take that benefit away.
Order. The Honourable Member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative government is sitting on its hands instead of bringing Mohamed Fahmy home. Fahmy is free on bail while he waits retrial. The Liberal Party has repeatedly called on the Prime Minister to step in, but so far there's been no response from the PMO. Why is the Prime Minister sitting on the sidelines? Why won't he pick up the phone, call the President, and secure Canadian Mohamed Fahmy's freedom?
Excellent. The Honourable Minister of State for Consular Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian government, including myself, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister, have been raising the case with Egyptian officials at the highest level for some time. Canada advocates for the same treatment of Mr. Fahmy as other foreign nationals and how they have the same treatment they have received. We continue to call for immediate and full release, and the prospect is for Mr. Fahmy to continue to stand trial is unacceptable, but our officials are providing consular assistance to Mr. Fahmy, and we are ensuring his well-being.
The Honourable Member for Hull-Aylmer. The mayors of Ottawa and Gatineau are making considerable efforts to better coordinate their actions. Both of them particularly have said that the NCC want the NCC to finally consider them as true partners. What is worrisome, however, is that the new minister responsible for the NCC has declared that he is ready to fight for the people of Ottawa. Once again, the Conservatives are turning their backs on the Outaouais. Will the minister set things right and deal with the issues that count for citizens on both sides of the river, such as the protection of Gatineau Park? Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, obviously our government is going to work to improve the quality of life of people in the entire National Capital Region. I have the honour of representing the Ottawa side, but I will be very honoured to work with the Honourable Member and other members of the House in order to help the constituents on the other side of the river. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a big country and we can work together to improve it.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, our government's proud to support projects that create jobs, grow the economy, and protect the environment. That's why we've invested significantly more than the Liberals did in clean energy technology, investments, Mr. Speaker, that are achieving results. Can the Minister of Natural Resources tell this House about the action we're taking, promoting jobs and growth in the natural resources sector?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
I want to thank the member for Thornhill for his question. Yes, last week I was in Quebec City and Toronto. There was a media frenzy around our announcements and significant support for world-leading eco-technology. Our Sustainable Development Technology Canada Fund is bringing clean tech, clean, green energy solutions to the marketplace and creating good jobs for Canadians. For every dollar invested by our government, the marketplace has responded with 14 private sector dollars for more than 57 mature companies accessing this fund. Contrast that with a Liberal carbon tax that will raise the price of, well, everything. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can count on this government in the clean energy sector to protect the environment without rate.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the thalidomide victims have shown patience until now. Despite having serious handicaps, often with limited resources, they have shown tremendous courage and resilience and will continue to fight to seek redress. We must bear in mind that they were the victims of the profit motive and negligence of the Canadian government, and that collectively we agreed to compensate them. I say to the Minister of Health, can you tell us when the victims will be compensated, and could you at least start paying out lump sums within a few weeks? Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this tragic event, while it happened in the 1960s, continues to remind us of the importance of patient safety and drug safety, which is something our government is firmly committed to. I continue to be in contact with Mercedes and the Thalidomide Survivors Association, and we are working towards a resolution.
The Honourable Member for Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. U.S. President Barack Obama recently commented that the climate crisis is a bigger threat to security than terrorism. Where here in Canada, our RCMP have put forward a report where they characterize people working for progress on the climate crisis as anti-petroleum ideologues and reflect a real lack of understanding of the science. And this is very worrying, particularly in light of the measures that are proposed in C-51. To the Minister of Public Safety, what measures will he take to educate the RCMP as to the real threat of climate change so they understand the science and understand that the threat is not the people who want to get us off fossil fuels, but the people who pander to the oil industry?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's approach is generating results. Our economy has grown substantially while greenhouse gas emissions have decreased. Our per capita emissions are now at their lowest since tracking began in 1990. We have one of the cleanest electricity systems in the world, with 79% of our electricity supply emitting no greenhouse gas emissions. Canada also became the first major coal user to ban the construction of traditional coal-fired electricity generation units, and will continue to move forward with regulatory measures that reduce greenhouse gas emissions while maintaining job creation and economic growth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Verchères les Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, last September, Canada and Europe signed a free trade agreement that had been negotiated a year earlier. Since that announcement, dairy producers have been concerned. Many small producers in my region are worried that they'll have to shut down their operations if nothing's done to compensate them for the huge amount of European cheeses, subsidized ones, that will be on the market. The Conservatives say that they're offering compensation, and yet the dairy producers still don't know how the government intends to deal with this supply management problem that threatens the fifth biggest industry in Quebec. What does the government intend to do tangibly to protect this industry from the disadvantages of the free trade agreement with Europe? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
And the supply management system, and this agreement, we've continued to do so. The three pillars of our domestic system of supply management remain intact. We will monitor any impact of this historic agreement on dairy producers' income, and if production levels are negatively affected, we will assist them financially.
Honourable Member for Verchères les Patriotes. I haven't heard any concrete answers still. On January 27th, I was already asking a question in this House about the inhumane treatment of blogger Raif Badawi, and he's been suffering for too long now. I have clearly understood that the government has several times asked for clemency from the Saudi government, and they have asked him to quash the sentence, but they haven't done enough. His health is deteriorating daily, and his wife and children fear for his life. We cannot continue to watch him languish without doing anything. Could the government take serious action and tell us with certainty what it intends to do so that Mr. Badawi be finally freed and sent back home to his family in Canada? The Honourable Minister of State for Foreign Affairs.
We are concerned about the loss of dignity of human rights, and we are calling for this to be respected, and just keeping in mind that the person is not Canadian, and we can only do what we can do. Thank you.
That concludes question period for today. I would like to draw the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Mr. Andrei Parubi, First Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Ukraine. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement.
Introduction of government bills.
By ministers. Rapport de
Reports from interparliamentary delegations.
Presenting reports from committees. The Honourable Hamilton Centre, yes.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I have the honour to present in both official languages the following reports of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. 12th report on Chapter 6 Transfer Payment Programs, Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency of the Spring 2014 report of the Auditor General of Canada. 13th report on Chapter 3 Aggressive Tax Planning of the Spring 2014 report of the Auditor General of Canada. And the 14th report on Chapter 2 Support for Combating Transnational Crime of the Fall 2014 report of the Auditor General of Canada. Pursuant to Standing Order 109 of the House of Commons, the committee requests the government table a comprehensive response for the 12th, 13th, and 14th reports. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of private members' bills.
First reading of Senate public bills.
First reading of Senate public